But yeah, so how do I do all of this? Well, I figured today would be a good day to talk about the kind of stuff that I do and how I do it. I mean, if you followed any of my streams before, you know that I use Tinkercad. You know, everything that I've done has been in Tinkercad, which blows some people's minds because they think automatically that I used Blender or Fusion 360 or some professional level program. No, this is something that is actually dedicated to students. I mean, here's the thing right here. Right here on the very top, they're talking about educators. They have a lot of things that talk about school. This is a tool meant for newbies and for students. But yet, at the same time, they've made it robust enough that it can do the sorts of things that I do. So I had one a couple of years ago. One of the senior engineers from Tinkercad got a hold of me on Twitter, and he was like, dude, you pushed this farther than we ever designed it to go. But at the same time, they've made it robust enough that it can do the sorts of things that I do. So it's a great tool. I mean, here's the stuff for the Archiplasmor. Takes a while to load up. It's web-based, so if their servers are getting hit with weekend maintenance or something like that. Yeah, Raspberry Pi was meant for students and education only over in the UK. And it just took off as a hobbyist platform. And it's awesome. It makes a great retro gaming console. In fact, where is it? Here it is. While this loads up, this right here is a little retro gaming console. It's got a Raspberry Pi. It's got a big ass heatsink in it. It's overclocked. It's got HDMI and everything. It will play pretty much any console game up to the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 2. Because at that point, this thing really can't handle it all that well. But anything else before that, the original NES, the Super NES, Commodore 64, PS1, all of that, all those games play perfectly on this little Raspberry Pi box. So, yeah, you can use it as a media server. I got a Plex server in the back. It's got a 12 terabyte RAID set up to it. Of course, it's also running on a Core i5. So it's not quite the same as a Raspberry Pi. But yes, you can use it as a media server or just a file server. It runs Linux. It runs, regular full Linux distros. So when you can have a 4-core Linux system for less than $80, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. It's really cool. Kuragani, thank you for the subscription to Solaris Shadow. Interesting, it's Solaris Shadow because for about 20 years, I was a system administrator for a Unix variant that's now owned by Oracle, known as Solaris. I was a Solaris system administrator for a long time. Hi, Twilink. Behave yourself. Twilink's one of my kids. I get to say that. So yeah, I mean, here's the Archiplasmor. It's all done in here. I mean, obviously, it took long enough. Shadow for the... Yep. Etsy password, Etsy Shadow. So, all of this stuff can be done in here. There are some things that Tinkercad cannot do that I wish they would do. But they leave that for Fusion 360. Tinkercad is made by Autodesk, which is also the company that makes Fusion 360 and AutoCAD if you want the really professional stuff. So they do have a design that anything that's done in here can be directly imported into Fusion 360. So their whole thing is, well, why should we have features from Fusion 360 in here when you can just import it into Fusion 360? And I get that. But at the same time, it would be so nice to take a sharp corner like this and highlight it and say, make a fillet out of it so it's a nice smooth curve. Why should I have to import it into Fusion 360 just to do that? You know, it'd be great to focus on point to one area on a plane and be able to pull it like it's putty. That'd be awesome. You know, why should I have to do all this just to have to import it into Fusion 360 to be able to do that? But they have their reasons. So, but this is what, hold on, let me get some things going on here. All right, so yeah, this is what I use. This is what I've been using from the beginning. It's funny to see people who didn't know I use Tinkercad and just assume that I use Fusion 360 or Blender, and they're like, you use Tinkercad for that? Yeah, I do, and it works. So there are some things I cannot do. This is great for corpus weapons and things like that because corpus weapons are very boxy, they're very industrial. There's no way in hell I could make a full-blown Grineer device on this because Grineer weapons are organic and they've got a whole bunch of curves and shapes and bumps, you know, stuff that looks like you just took a thing of putty and just right onto it. You're not doing that in Tinkercad. Sorry, that ain't happening. Vacor Heck was an exception because it doesn't look like a standard Grineer weapon. So deal with CAD Revit way too much in day-to-day. Yeah, I don't do this. You know, this is just... You know, this is just something I do. I don't do anything with CAD professionally at all. And I never touched CAD until 4 years ago. That's the other thing. A lot of people seem to think that, oh man, you know, this is... You've been doing this for a long time. It's like, no. No, 4 years. A couple of years. That's it. You know, I dabbled with it when I got my 3D printer, but it wasn't until I decided to make that Vacor Heck that I'm like, okay, I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to see what I can do with this, and I got it done. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and I've had a whole bunch of other people now saying, boy, I wish I could make that. You can. Yes, it will take time. Yes, it will take money. Yes, it will take practice. But if you can visualize it, and you can get past... Anybody who's watched previous streams will know the struggle that I had to convert some of those 2D Captura images to 3D, especially this area right here. Oh dear God, that was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But, you know, got it done. It can be done. So, you know, then I had a bunch of other people who were friends of mine who said, you know, you're selling me on 3D printers, but I'd like to learn how to actually make things. Well, that's why I'm here. That's what I wanted this stream to be. So, and that's why I figure this would be a good time to just do a stream that is on the basics of Tinkercad. Because it's entry level, it's available to everyone. If you've never touched CAD before, this is the place to start. Not saying that you shouldn't start with Blender or Fusion 360, but this is more like flying a two-seater prop plane. Fusion 360 is like flying in the latest 777 or 787. So, sure, you can start on that if you really want. Would I recommend it? Not necessarily. You know? Plus, they're not really meant to handle the same kind of 3D CAD. This is, I forget what the actual term is for this, but this is, you basically take common shapes and you stick them together and you join them and you take away from them, again, using common shapes. That Archiplasmor, the Archititron, all of them, it's from joining cubes and spheres and triangles and cones and putting them together and then taking bits away from them. That's all this is. That's all this is. Like, that's simplistic. But, you know, it's just taking basic shapes and merging them together or taking pieces away from them. Whereas something like Fusion 360, oh my God. Yes, you can easily separate parts into different planes, as they're called, and then you can modify the edges of those planes, but it's also meant to do stuff like gears and internal mechanisms and switches, and I think it's called parametric design. This is not made for that. You know, it's This is made for beginners, for tinkerers, for students, but clearly if you know how to utilize it, you can do a lot more with it. So, but this is it, you know, you just sign up for it. You can use your Facebook account, you can use your Google account, you can use a regular user ID, email address, and password if you want. Then you come in, create new design, boom. There you go. You got your work plane. So, some things about this, I'll give you the link to this. I highly recommend that you print this off if you have a printer. I realize not everybody has a printer anymore. But learning this will be a big help. Here's the link to the PDF for it. Get your hands on this. You will use this. This will make your life a lot simpler. And it's got a lot of functions on this that are not available on the interface itself. So things like, you know, transparencies and just being able to maneuver it by using the keys instead of trying to struggle with using it on the mouse. A lot easier. So I highly, 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 highly recommend getting this. So here's the work plane. So we'll just cover the interfaces here. It will generate the name to be whatever. They add some silly words to it because, again, it's based towards students. If you want to change the name, you just change it. So I figured today we'll make some platinum. We'll design some platinum. Got to cut this short. Sorry, internet is about to go down because of some tech issue. Oh man, but you enjoyed chatting. It'd be a lot easier to know about this and chat with your Discord. Okay, that's cool. No, you know, if your internet comes back up, I'll probably be streaming for several more hours. Thanks for answering my questions. Have a good. You are very welcome. Thank you for stopping by. That's true. It's now what, 10:36 your time. So, well, if you come back later, okay, cool. And but hey, thanks for stopping by. And yes, feel free to chat me up on Twitter or Discord. We're all good there. So here, you can rename it whatever you want. Up here, it shows the various interfaces. I really don't touch these. And you can do it with bricks, so that you can do a Lego kind of design here. Blocks, I've never worked with. I will admit that. I generally stick with these sorts of things here, you know, and they got a whole bunch of different things that you can do, you know, because people contribute tools and objects. So it's very simple. You want to make a number 4, drag and drop, there you go. You've put a 4 on it. Toodles, oh my god, that is how I end just about all of my podcasts and most of my streams. I will end it with Toodles! Oh my god. That's awesome. Crazy. So, I mean, maneuvering around is very simple. I mean, mouse button by itself selects. So when you have multiple objects there, you can select them to do whatever you need to. Hold the right mouse button down and it rotates. Might take a little bit of getting used to. Hold the shift key down and the right mouse button and it shifts. This is just one of those things you got to figure out, or look at that PDF that I posted. So you can also use this. So if you want to see something from the front, just click on front and yep, there you go. If you want to look at it from the top, just click on top. Simple to work with. Over here, this sends you to a home view. That fits, like if you have everything, let me just put this here. And you say, oh, I want to fit that to the screen. Boom. There you go. Zoom in, zoom out. Pretty standard. Now this one changes the perspective view. You can see right now this is in what's called perspective mode. Everything goes off to a vanishing point. If you're doing simple stuff, this will work okay. For complex stuff, I do not recommend it because things in the distance look smaller than things that are up close. And if you're trying to design something complex, that's going to confuse you because something might look like it's aligned and it's not. So I do everything. I switch the view to what is called orthographic. If you've never dealt with it, it looks really weird. I get that. But let me go back and give you another example. Let's fire up the Dara Vandal. By default, I go into orthographic view almost immediately on every new file. So there, that might look weird, that might look a little bit bizarre, but if you look at it from here, you can see that this part is the same width all the way down. This part is, this goes straight down, and it doesn't quite align. Whoops, that was dumb. It doesn't quite align with this part, but that's okay. That's the way I wanted it. That's the way it's supposed to be. Meanwhile, this part aligns perfectly along this line right here with this part. But if you do it in perspective mode, looks a lot different, doesn't it? So now, from here to look at this, well, now wait a minute. This looks like those two actually don't line up. That's not good. I need to bump that a little bit over. Which is not the case. And you can't see the other part. You can't see that there's actually the little gap that's there. You can't see it because it's hidden by this block. Perspective view is not really a good way to do it. Once you get used to it, the orthographic view makes things so much easier. For this, we're just going to do a thing of plat. It's not going to be a big deal. But for the more complex objects, I would just say, just get used to orthographic. I just think there we go. Get the platinum in. Actually, let me hide that for now so we can go over this. So that's what that bottom function is. Switches between perspective, which I don't recommend, and orthographic, which really should be the way to do it. Let's go back here. If you have a 3D printer and you want to set, well, for example, let's say you have a 3D printer that's got a bed of 300 millimeter by 300 millimeter. By default, this is set to 200 by 200. So you can edit the grid to change how wide you want it. It can go anywhere up to 1,000 in each direction. And to be quite honest, that's one of the reasons why the Archiplasmor is actually smaller than it should be. By my calculations, the Archiplasmor should have been 42 inches long, which is more than 1,000 millimeters. So I shrunk it down to 38 and scaled it that way so that it could all fit on the work plane. But, that's just how I run. So you can change the grid there. Let me switch that over to orthographic again. So that's how you change that. By default, if you use the keys to move things around, it'll snap. Well, even if you move it with a mouse, it'll snap to every millimeter. That's fine if you're not doing anything complex. You can change that so that objects will snap to a smaller grid. In this case, we're not going to worry about it too much. So up here, you can add notes. Just saying, hey, this part does this. You don't print it off. It just shows up in Tinkercad. That's okay. This part here is the show all. And what that does is, if something is getting in your way and you just want to get it out of view for now, you don't delete it. You simply come up here and you hide it. Where did it go? Oh, I don't know. Let's just bring it back. That's all that does. So the next ones actually go with basic functions. So how did I make the Dara Vandal? How did I make any of the stuff that I do? You take these shapes, and these are just some of the shapes. There are a ton more, vehicles, structures. I normally go with the shape generators because that's where there are the most options. And they have a whole bunch of different things that you could use. So, but let's say you just want to join two things together. You want to make, let's see, not an oval. Well, let's make something that looks like a medicine pill. So you put an object down. You can see immediately that there are several things that pop up. By default, everything is 20 by 20. Actually, 20 by 20 by 20. So you've got width, length, height. You can adjust it by clicking and dragging it, and you can see that it increments by 1 because that's what the grid is at. So that's adjusting the height. That's adjusting the length. That's adjusting the depth of it. So you can set that to be whatever you want. If you need to rotate it, you can see that there's an arrow here. You can rotate the object. You can do it in 15-degree increments by doing it from inside this circle, or by 1-degree increments on the outside. Oh, and one of the nice things, the Control-Z for undo, it works. So just Control-Z will undo, which is wonderful, and you will use it, trust me. Now, alright, so you got that. And you can rotate it a couple of different ways, too. You can rotate it that way. If you want to rotate it from this direction, you can rotate it that way, too. Now, it's all right there. You can enter the value manually by highlighting whichever value you want to do. Hit Tab, and then change the value, hit Enter, boom, it's done. It's very simple in that regard. Let's add a cylinder in here. In this case, you can see that if there are attributes that can be changed, they'll be listed right up here. You just change the attributes however you want. Let's see, this is 10, so we want this to be 10. We can do that. We want it to be the same, so that's what? 40, all right. All right, ooh, now wait, hold on, these are not aligned. Well, we can align them manually, which can be a pain in the butt, or select them both. And there's an align tool right here, which will align whatever objects are selected. So you can select it based on whichever axis. And if you want it to focus on one object to be used as the baseline, you simply select on that. So I want to center it on this plane. And that's all I want to do for now. So now those are centered. Trust me, when I started the Archoplasmor, the easiest thing for me to start with was the ammo drum because it's a cylinder. It's a basic cylinder. So I got the cylinder for the ammo drum set up, got that in position, and everything was centered based off of that. If I saw that a part was getting out of place, all I'd do is center it on the ammo drum, and it was back in line. So it's very beneficial. And then in this case, you simply move it in place. All right, now I want to make another one of these for the other end. So Control D, D for duplicate, makes a copy of it. And you simply put that over at the end. All right, so now how do I get all these to become one object? Simply select them all, and you group them. And it's now one object. So the system knows, too, that that is a group. So if you wanted to separate them for any reason, you just hit the ungroup. There you go. That's one of the reasons why my models can take a long time to load up when they're done, because it's a group that's grouped to another group, which is grouped to another group, which is grouped to another group, which is grouped to another group. There are some parts of my model that go like 15, 16 groups deep, which that's just the way it is. So think, all right, so that's how we put it all together. How do we take chunks away from it? Well, by default, they have the two options for a square or a cylinder, and these are called holes. You're creating a hole. That's basically what it comes down to. So if you want to put a big honking square hole in the middle of this, So let's highlight them both. We want everything to center on this object, so we center it that direction. We center it that direction. Doesn't matter if it's too big or not. That does not matter. But you can bring it down if you wish. Highlight them both. Group them. And there's your hole. This is the basic foundation on which I have made every single one of my props. That's it. You know, there's an object here to, it's called a tire, or a tube. But, you know, I don't want to use that kind of a tube. I want to make my own. Okay. So let's pull a regular cylinder over here. Let's make it 40 by 40 just for giggles. And I hate that they make it so few sides, but let me take another cylinder for a hole. And we'll just stick them two together. We'll align them up. And boom. There you go. And this is how I have done everything with all of my props. It's just taking all of these shapes and realizing how to use Tinkercad to take chunks away, add chunks together. And I mean, that's what I've done. That's how this is all done. Let's say you want to, let me think. Well, let's say you've got a square and you want the corners. Let's not use that one because that's not. Take a wedge. And you want this top corner of the wedge to be a little bit softer. You don't want that point there. All right. They do have some other shapes in the shape generator. So the term for doing that to an edge is called filleting. And like I said, in Fusion 360, you could just highlight that line and apply a fillet and it's done. Not so much here. So let me find that part. Did I go past it? Hold on, I think I have it favorited. There it is. So we'll take this. Oop. So let's rotate that up that way. Still doesn't quite fit, so let's rotate that to a 45-degree angle. We'll work with that. So this little arrow here raises and lowers. And if you hold shift while you adjust that, it will shrink or grow the part. If you just want to adjust the size of it, and like I said, you just work with that, and that'll do it. Let's put this up here. This isn't going to be perfect. I'm just showing this as an example. Throw that out here. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Pull that out here. Want to turn it into a hole? You simply click hole. So now it will cut away instead of adding. So let's move this up a bit. All right, stop. If it's not going to behave for you on that, you can always use the control key to do up and down. Learn that PDF that I linked you to. And you just come down here. Like I said, this is not a perfect example. It's just to show the general idea. And I'm going to reduce the snap grid down. I want more detail. So you can see that it has this shadowing effect for whatever's going to get cut off. Looks like a Star Trek emblem, but okay. You join them together, and you now have a smoother edge on the top. So, people don't believe you when you make something with it. I can't tell you how many times people would see the props that I make and they're like, "You made that in Tinkercad? What?" Yeah, I made it in Tinkercad. And it's all by doing this. I mean, this is it. It's just adding and taking away and joining and groups and all of that. And as long as you can manipulate that, you can make whatever the hell you want, including big honkin' Warframe props or any other prop from any video game or whatever, or movie or TV show that you want to make. It's all here. The tools are all here. You might have to think outside the box a bit, but it's all there. And okay, so now we've got this group. We can add to it. You know, let's add this block. Put that at a 45-degree angle, and I want to link it up. Just put it right here. Highlight the two of them, center them up, and then join them together. Okay, that's now a solid piece. This is how all of it is done. This is how I've done every single prop that I've made. And if I can do it, you can do it. And again, Tinkercad knows that this is a group, so you can always ungroup it. And now they're separated, and you can make whatever kind of manipulations you want. You know, I want that to go in a little bit deeper. Oop. So, okay, fine. So you move it in deeper, and then you join it up again. There you go. That's it. Now, and then you just keep adding and adding and adding and adding and taking away and taking away and taking away. And you can make whatever you want. Really. There are limitations to it. Like I said, things that have a lot of bumpy shapes or very organic shapes, like Grineer weapons. Or that one infested arm weapon. I forget the name of it because words never work with me. I forget the name of that one. I want to say Phantasm, but that's not it. That's a movie. But that thing, you ain't making that in Tinkercad. You probably could if you really got creative. I don't have that kind of... The Bubonico, thank you. That, yeah. You ain't making that in Tinkercad without a lot of, like, spheres and things like that. So... But it works with any object. You just stretch it however you want, do what you want to do. You know, you want to make something that looks like a crescent moon. All right. So we'll put a cylinder here. You grab the hole, you line them up the way you want, and you group them. There's your crescent moon. That's it. You know, for something like that. There are a lot of other things that you can do that are actually relatively recent additions. Like, for example, let's say you've got this, and you want to start working on this angled area here. But you don't want to have to keep rotating everything to 45 degrees, which, believe me, for stuff like these side plates here, that's a pain in the ass to have to keep angling things when you want to make changes. W is a new function that allows you to select, well, for example, this is the base workspace here. This is the axis for the workspace that we use. W and then the surface will set a new workspace. So now whenever you drop a new item, it acts as though that is the new foundation. So all of the parts work with that. Then you hit W again and hit the plane surface, and it's back to normal. So you don't have to constantly work with all of the angles, which is... I'm so glad they added this function. This is a function that they actually had in, or have in Fusion 360 that I was hoping they would add to this, and they finally added it about a year ago. So much nicer. So, say I want to make a Pokéball, I could make it with the... Absolutely. Okay, let's do that. Let's make... So let's take this. I'm going to put that up to 50. Oh, good. Okay. Let's put that up to 50. Actually, I guess... let me do it a better way. Let me use a half sphere, since Pokéball actually opens up. So you can actually do this with the numbers. I think if you hold the shift key down when you're entering the numbers, I think it'll change it as well. Yeah, there we go. So, all right, we've got that. Let's flip this around for the bottom half. Now, I'm going to hit Control D to make a copy of it. And I'm just going to move it up here so you can see it. I'm going to turn that into a hole. And then I'll bring that down to 45. So I'm going to align that up. Hit the align function. Hit the object that I want to align it to. Align the tops of them. So you can align it to the top, align it towards center, align it toward the bottom. Let me just join these. Oh, hey, look at that. I've already got the bottom half of a Pokéball, more or less. The basic function of it. Oh, well, I also want to have something for the top. So I will hit Control D, move that out of the way. And, oh, there's the top that I can work on now. And you start from here. So, okay, now you want to add... You can change the color for your own reference. They also have a multicolor function. If you have a group of items that, you group them all together, but those parts were different colors, like you want to make a flag. So you have a bunch of red and white alternating parts that you've just joined as a group. You can hit multicolor, and you can change the colors of those, but I don't really do anything with that. So now you've got upper half, lower half. I forget which one. Is the top half red, bottom half white, or is that the other way around? Oops, I didn't want to do that. Top half is red. Okay, that's what I knew you would know that. Not really red, but... Do they even have an actual red here? I don't know that they do. Oh, another function that they have. If you want to see something behind, but you can't, if you select it and hit T for transparent, you'll be able to see through it. It doesn't change anything except how you look at it, but it'll at least let you to see beyond that part, which is a lot. That's a big thing to have. And you can also see here how thick it looks. You can see the thickness of the ball right here. So if you're like, I want it to be a little bit thinner, then you can ungroup it, change the dimensions, group them again, and you can have thinner wall or thicker walls, whatever way. So turn the transparency off. All right, so now, actually, there was a little black rim that connects, that connects the two. So let's create a little black rim. We'll just use the tire function just because it's easier for now. So these are all 40. Oh, sorry, these are 100 all the way across. So I'll make these 100. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. What just happened? And it doesn't have to be big, so we'll only make that like 4 millimeters. We'll make that black just so we can see it. Now with this one, you can change the thickness as well. So it doesn't need to be very thick. And this is just another way of doing it. If you actually want to, you can actually just slice out a section of another sphere if you want. Just, let's say you didn't want to use this tube. This tube isn't really fitting the way you want it to. Well, you could always take a sphere and then take a block, a whole block, so let's see, this is 100. If you want to get precise, the best way to do something like this, let's do this. So now that block is exactly 1/2 of the height of that sphere. And again, these can be, the holes can overlap all you want. We'll make a duplicate of that, and we will align that one. So we select that, and then hold the shift key down and select the sphere. So that will align with the bottom. Now it's exactly split in half. So we'll move this one up, hitting the control key and the up arrow. That's 0.25. Let me change that. So I just moved that up 2 millimeters, and I just dropped that down 2 millimeters. Highlight all three of them, group them, and as soon as, there we go, the center's cut. So now you can use another cylinder right in the middle. We'll make this, it doesn't even have to be a perfect match. We'll make it 95 and 95. They could be the most craziest decimal places you want, and Tinkercad will still line them up however you tell it to. Group those. Boom. So you could use this as your inner ring, if your center ring if you want. And at least this way, it's still a sphere. So it'll still have the slight curve to it that this wouldn't have. Yeah, so then this could go right there. Now, the next question would probably be, well, wait a minute. That center piece is 4 millimeters thick, but you just added it, so now that's going to be 104. Well, it said 102, but it's off. Like, yeah. So, hey, Best, how's it going? So then what you can do to account for that is take one, another block, make it big enough to cover that top area. So there, now we know that it's right at the top. Drop that down by 2. Same thing over here. All right, there it is. So now that's at the very bottom, so bring that up by 2. Join those, and that extra 2 millimeters is chopped off of there. Join these two. That extra 2 millimeters is chopped off there. So now you line everything up. Okay, I missed the hole over here. That happens. Let me ungroup that. Slide that over a little bit. Join them up again. Actually, let's just do it this way. Let's highlight all 3. Hit align. There we go. And we've got our sphere again. All from cutting and joining and grouping and all of that. So then, let's say, for example, that you want to make the little button that goes on the front. We'll take another cylinder. 20 is a bit too small. Although 20 might be good for the white part of it. Actually, let's make this part black. Let's make it a bit more realistic. So now you can see the Pokeballs coming together. This doesn't have to be much. We'll make that 2, and we'll save that as... I don't play Pokemon, so this is all from what I know of it. So if I'm getting the shape and the colors not perfect, you get the idea. Let's create another one. Whatever, that can be any height we want. Let's just make it 3. Make that slightly bigger. Oops, not 3, Buckethead. Okay, that's probably too big. But I'm not going to pull up a reference, smartass. I mean, this is just for example. So we can align all these up to get them centered. Now, obviously, if you're actually going to try to print this off, you're going to have to, find ways to, you cut a hole out so that you can put it into place and attach it to one of the lids or whatever. But this is just for example. Smart Alec. She's my daughter. I can say these things. And then you can just put them right over here. And you've got the beginnings of a Pokeball. Now when it comes to actually making it work, yeah, you're going to have to, you could use a hole to cut away this arc here, even down in here, so that you could make this something that sits into it. And then you'd have to work on making a hinge back here. There are different ways of doing it. But for the very basics of making a Pokeball, there you go. And it's already in 2 halves for you to work with it. And again, for something like this, well, you want that to be the same as the rest. Okay, fine. So ungroup. Again, you can make this, you can hit T, make this transparent so that you can kind of get a better reference, and then just make the modifications for this cutout in the middle that you want to make. I think it was 90 each way. Is that it? Oh, hold on. I'm hitting the wrong thing. Yeah, it is very easy to... Oh, that is a bug they've got. I forgot about that. Drives me nuts. Something to be aware of. If you have a part that's transparent and you have a hole that you're working on with that transparency, many times when you select the hole, it selects the object. I don't know why. So, but that happens when an object is transparent. It is a bug in the system, so you got to be aware of that. I'm glad I actually got to see that. So we'll cut that hole to be 90 and 90. Let's center them up horizontally and vertically, or depth and width. Join them together. I hit the ungroup because I'm stupid. And there you go. So now the black ring is the same thickness as the walls of the ball itself. And you've got the beginnings of a Pokeball. If you want, again, you'd have to make a cutout of this, which is actually very easy to do. For example, let's see. If you wanted to print this just as is, you have a 3D printer, you want to print this as is, you can take this, duplicate it with Control D, hide just one of them. So now one of the things that I just duplicated are hidden. Convert this into a hole. All right, but you need one for the top and the bottom. Well, that's fine. Hit Control D again. I just made a copy of the hole. Join those two together. Join these two together. And you can see, let me hide this. You can see that there, okay, there's a little bit of an issue there. Again, that's something you'll have to work on. So these holes are going to have to come out a little bit to cover that extra space. There we go. So there, you can see I just made a hole in both of those halves to take into account this black marker here. And then, you could join these together if you wanted, however you want to do it. So then all you'd have to do is print this bottom half, print this center ring, print this top half, print the button, sand them, paint them, glue them together. You know, another option to make it easier for 3D printing purposes is make this ring and this part separate so that you can print them all nice and flat. Once again, make a duplicate of that, turn the duplicate into a hole, merge it with the ring, and now if you hide these, did it again. Pull that out. Now, all three pieces have a hole that was cut out specifically for the black button. So you could make a Pokeball that doesn't necessarily open, granted, but you can now make a Pokeball, scale this up to whatever size you want using a final count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. You're done. There it is, right there for you to use. Now, if you want to get fancier, you can come back in here, add a hinge that connects them together. Not going to go over that. Yes, I can visualize how it can be done, and it's actually not that bad. So, you could make it a Pokeball that opens. I just said that, yes. I know. Between the time it takes to finish typing plus lag, it's right there. There's your Pokeball. It's not Warframe Platinum, but it is a Pokeball. You know, and you could even... there are already several Pokeballs available that you can download and print. And some of them will have like this black gridded interior. It's the same thing. You could use this, make a black gridded interior that curves along with the inside simply by making another sphere or whatever. You know, or making another ring like this, putting it in place along the inside of the curve, cutting it away. There are a couple different ways that you can do it. But there you go. You wanted to see how a Pokeball could be made. There you go. And it's not difficult. You just have to know how to use the tools to do it. And when you think about every single prop that I've made was done using this method. It's just a lot more groups. A lot more. That's it. Now, so for now, I will just put this over to the side. So let's look at this and say, how do we make some Warframe Platinum? There actually is a Platinum download available, but for some reason, this entire center section there's nothing. It's just a big hole. And it's like, well, I don't know that we're going to have that. Granted, it's not so easy to see what's there, but we can work with it. We can work with it. So let's look at this. It's a cylinder, a basic cylinder. It looks like it's got a notch right here and a notch right here. Shouldn't be too difficult to replicate. I can't really see how I can't really see behind it. And because Platinum is not actually a thing that you can see in-game, I don't think it is anyway, Captura is not going to help, so this is all we're going to be able to go by. We've got that, okay. Then it looks like it's got some kind of... And granted, it's a texture thing, but we can simulate that by making just a small indentation for the rings. And then, you know, these parts here, okay, same thing. We can simulate it. And then having an area for this section here. Because, I mean, how cool would it be to have a piece of platinum and you put some lights on the inside of it so that the center glows? That'd be really cool. I'd do it. So let's just start working with this. Coming back in here, make a cylinder. I have no clue how big a piece of platinum is, but you want it to be at least somewhat decent. I'm going to make it 100 by 100 again. It only looks small because I have the grid so huge. I can drop that down. I get 300 by 300. Oh yeah, one thing with Tinkercad. It doesn't necessarily appreciate when you take things off the grid. So, especially if you're using the big 1000 by 1000. So, might want to be careful on that one. So let's just go here, and just to make it in the mood, we'll make it, you know, silverish. Bump up the amount of sides. Let's see, that looks, I don't know. If that's 20, that looks maybe 50-ish. I select that, tab it to hit the numbers, then go to 50. And we'll go with that. So, taking these chunks out of the sides, and then there's... No, it looks like it's just a regular notch. I don't see anything special about them. They just look like a notch. But you can see that the notches are actually angled, so you can't just use a regular square for it. And it looks like the doesn't. It's so hard to tell with these. That's why I love Captura. I guess for now we'll just go with the basic chiseled look. So, seeing as how it looks like it's not a straight square because it bevels out. You know, you can see here that one goes straight up, that one goes out. So it's not a straight square or rectangle that you can throw in there. You're gonna have to compromise with that a little bit. Let's take a square. That actually looks like that might be a good size to it. So we're going to turn that into a hole because we're going to be taken away from the platinum. And if you want to get it so that it's... Yeah, that's actually front facing that way. If you want to get it so that it's perfect with that, we can put that at a 45-degree angle. Actually, I would recommend not doing that just yet. It does have a problem, and again, this is something that Fusion 360 does not have an issue with. Let's say I put this at 45-degree angle, and I want things to be relative to this. You can do it by adjusting the workspace. So now anything that I make will be relative to that. Sometimes it's easier to just work on it first, then rotate it. So then we'll take this wedge. We'll rotate it so that it's up on its end. Align that up. Bring that in like that. Make it a hole. Let's duplicate that. Bring it down here. Flip it 90 degrees. And there we've got a non-square notch. If that looks like that's a bit too sharp, that's easy. You can ungroup that. And then just reduce the thickness. So now that angle isn't as sharp as it was before. Whoops. Rotate that to 45 degrees. Put it in, best estimate. Drag the height up. And if that still seems to be a bit too much, you can still adjust it. Got to be careful that once you adjust it and you change the angle, it might not adjust it the way you think it will, because it doesn't know that here you did it perfectly along the X and Y axes. It doesn't realize that, and it doesn't retain that once you adjust it. So now, as far as it's concerned, this is the X and this is the Y. So it will adjust it based on that. I mean, look at those numbers. It's 1292, 2192 by 2192. So you got to play with that a bit. Maybe the best thing to do would be, okay, then I will make that my work plane. Now it still looks at it as, you know, the regular way that it was before. So now I can adjust it without distorting it. Things to look out for, a lot of gotchas that I ran into. So let's say that we'll put that right there. Oops, wrong one. Grab the Z height, raise that up. You know, and if it doesn't look like that's the right position, just change it. You know, and if you need to, change the angle. Hit Control D. Now here, you can actually mirror it. So you can hit this, and then you can mirror it along whichever axis you want, including up and down. So in this case, we want to mirror it along that axis, and there you go. Sometimes that's a lot better to do than trying to rotate it 180 degrees. You just drag it over. So it's exactly on the opposite side, which seems to be the case here. Join them together. Hey, there's a notch. And if you think the notch isn't right, maybe it's not deep enough, or maybe it's too deep, hit top here to angle that out. You can simply ungroup. And then regroup. So now the notches are just a little bit deeper. Now again, from this image, it's kind of hard to tell. But we'll just go with that. I mean, my perfectionism is kicking in. I still don't think those notches are right, but we'll let it go. We'll let it go. This is just for educational purposes. So, all right. So now, looks to me like this outer ring is actually a lip. So if you look at it right here, it looks like this is actually an outer ledge, and that the top part of it sinks in just a little bit. So I'm going to go with that. There are actually two ways to approach this one. We could take a cylinder that is slightly smaller, put it on top and let it sink in a millimeter or two as a whole, and then cut away the top section. That's one way to do it. Another way, because we do have the notches there, let's say, for example, you didn't want this to be a sharp edge. You want this to be kind of like smooth and contoured. Well, then the way that you could do that, you take the cuts out. In fact, if they're going to be in the way for now, you can hide them for now. So they're out of the way. They're still there, but they're out of the way. You could do something like take a ring. I don't think this is the best way to do it, but I'm just trying to show how it can be done. How you do it is up to you. And then change, like there. Oh, there we go. I don't like that because I don't like the sides. But this is just for example purposes. You can change that to 100 by 100. Align them all up. And then, how tall is this? I really would not suggest this simply because of how ugly those curves are, but let's make that 2 millimeters high. Because what we'll do is we can align them up along the height for now. Then, whoops. Select that, raise it up 1 millimeter, and then align everything along X and Y. And you've got a little bit of a lip. It's a really flippin' ugly lip. But nonetheless, you get the idea. It's a lip. There are better ways to do it, trust me. But then you can also bring the notches back in, highlight everything, and you've got the notches with the lip. That's a really horrible, horrible looking lip, so we're just gonna not do that. Whoops, wrong one. Again, Control Z will undo. I mean, undo is right here. Shit! You know what I have to do then? I'm a professional streamer. I don't make mistakes like that. So, yeah, I'm a professional streamer. You actually didn't see that it was there because you just didn't see it, but it was there. I don't make mistakes like that. So, it was on you, not me. Anyway, it's actually good you didn't see it because the ring that I made was really freaking ugly. It was bad. That was a bad tool to use. But, you know, so you can make a lip to this by adding something on top of it, which is fine, and then cutting away. Or you could do something more along the lines of this, which is, we'll just make that 2, it doesn't matter. If this is 100 by 100, let's make this 98 by 98. Yeah, that happens. Now, if we get everything ready to be aligned, so right there, they're aligned with the top. We don't want that. We want it to. Well, I mean, no, I take that back. We could do it. We could do it. So, again, the hole does not have to be the exact size of the item that you're cutting away from. It could be higher, just like these over here. It doesn't matter. And sometimes on really complex parts, I've had issues where keeping the hole perfectly aligned, it doesn't calculate it properly. So I try to play it safe and make the hole go a little bit outside of where it should go, but you don't have to. We'll take those. Let's center them there. It'll be a tiny ridge, but it'll be a ridge. Let's highlight all 4 of them. And there we go. If you look at it and say, oh, that lip is too deep, fine. Undo it. And then raise the lip up however far you want it to go. Or raise the hole up. There we go. Okay. So now we've got a lip and it's not as severe. But even at that, you can get this down to whatever level you want. 0.5 millimeter, 1/4 millimeter, 1/10 of a millimeter. And off, I think, sets it down to like 0.05 millimeter or maybe even 0.01 if you really want to fine tune. But I generally don't need to do that. Sometimes, but not always. So if that's, if that lip is still too big, fine. I'll raise it up 0.5 millimeter. Okay, there we go. We've got a lip. Fine, we'll leave it at that. Then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rings. And then the big honking cutout in the center. Let's work on the cutout in the center. So, something to make it easy, since everything we're going to do from this point on is going to be at the top of this cylinder, rather than drop the item down here and then have to lift it up every time, we'll hit W and make the top of this cylinder the workspace. So now, every time we drop an object, it'll be right there at the top, right where we want it. It'll make things a lot easier in that regard. So, we want to make a ring. In this case, let's see. Let's take regular cylinder. Because of what we're looking at, we don't need to make it tall at all. In fact, the less excess that you can have, the better it'll be, and the less complicated it'll be, the less confusing it will be. So if you know a part needs to be thin, even if it's a hole, make it as small and compact as you can. Otherwise, if you have to start ungrouping things, it'll get annoying. So let's start working with those rings. We'll make that, I don't know, start at 90 by 90. Yeah. Depending on how your browser is set, it could screw up the bottom of your browser. It's okay. Is that about right? Nah, have to be a little bit smaller, I think. Let's make it 85 by 85. Still not perfect, but whatever. We'll deal with it. And that's a really thin ring. That is not going to need to be big at all. So this is 85 by 85. Oops, didn't want to make it a hole. Let's put a hole on that. That'll be 84 by 84. So for this, we'll center the hole with the other cylinder that we made. Just center those bad boys up. Group them. Why didn't that take? Price again. There we go. So now we've got a ring that we can use, and we simply turn that into a hole. Center those up. Then drop that down. Doesn't need to be much, because all we're doing is making a slight indentation to make it look like a difference in texture. Now, here's the thing that is cool about Tinkercad. If you need to do something that repeats, like in this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rings, all of different sizes. Hopefully it'll take it. It might not. So we went from 100 to 85. So let's duplicate that. Make it 70. Whoop, 70. But why isn't you taking? You're being stubborn. Come on, Tinkercad. I'm trying to make you look good here, and you're not helping. 70 by 70. All right. Align those up. Now, if I press Control D again, it's not doing it. All right. What it should have done is, because I made the other one 15 millimeters closer in each dimension, should have created another one that was 15 in, another one that was 15 in, as long as you keep hitting Control D. But it didn't want to. Hey, Magic Thighs! Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Magic Thighs is the guy who makes the kit guns. I focus on the bigger weapons, clearly, and he focuses on the kit guns, and they look freaking amazing. So I duplicated that ring, so let's bring that down to 55. Again, keeping it with 15 millimeters each way. Center it up. And just do that one more time. All right, so we've got those, what will be indentations. And again, if it's like, oh, did I move those down or not? I don't remember. Well, you can make this transparent and take a look. So, looks like the notches should go in about half a millimeter. Let's highlight the whole thing. Join them all. Hey, look, we've got little notches that will replicate what looks like, changes in texture. All done. Yeah, I understand that. Now, I will admit, if you look at it, you can see that the thickness of the lines changed because obviously as we changed the size, that changes the thickness. You can correct that. You can ungroup each one, adjust the settings, because remember, each one of those lines is its own group. So you can go in there and change the whole. See, look at that. 39.53 instead of 39. Select them both, center them back up, group them, and then change that back into a hole, and now it's back at a 1 millimeter thickness. So, little gotchas you might have to look out for. No, they shouldn't be. Those should all be half a millimeter in each case. So I didn't change the height of them. The height should not have changed. So then this one, I change that to 69 and that to 69. Huh, he said 69. Huh. Yeah, I did. You gutter minds. Just line those up, group them, convert that into a hole, and boom. Select them all, and that's it. Yeah, it does. I think it's just an optical illusion. It does feel like it's kind of a like those Greek theaters that had the stage in the middle and the seats that come down. I will admit, it does look like that. I think it's just an optical illusion, though. That is flat. So there, we've got. Oh yeah, you missed it before. We made a rudimentary Pokéball. I was showing how to do that. The question was asked, so I said, let's try it. Okay, so now we've got those. All we have to work on now is this center section here. So we'll leave it here. We'll leave the workspace base right here at the top. So I have no clue how deep that goes. This image gives no clue. And again, this isn't an item that you can actually look at in-game. So we're just going to have to have some fun with this. It looks like it goes to about there. Okay, so 30 is a good width. And actually looks like that should be a little bit taller. Let's center everything up, see what we got. And you can tell when things are properly aligned because it turns from black to gray. Oh, it's going out to the next line. Going out to this one. That's why. The lines are just an estimate anyway. I know I'm being pedantic, sorry. Let's make that 30. I think 35 by 50 looks pretty good. Select them both. Post to next project. Uh-oh. Let's align these up. I'm just going to take that. So now we can come down here and we just drop it whatever depth we think it should be. We'll make it 5 millimeters deep. If you look at it, I think these are just decorative. They look like, I'm not sure what they are. I'm not sure what those are, but wish there were better images out there of this. But you know, it's just. Oh, you know what? I wonder if DE's actual website. Because you can buy platinum. I wonder if they have a higher. I doubt it, but it's. Stop that. Oh, it's not letting me zoom in on the image? Really? You're kidding me. Yeah, I can't really see much. A little bit more detail. Hold on. No, stop that. Can't just capture the image. Okay, fine. But I can see like little dots in there. Oh, why is it not letting me do that? Damn it, DE. Yeah, not gonna work. Oh, well, I know that I see some dots in... Will you stop that? We'll just go with what we've got. Guess I could take a snapshot of it. Doesn't really help. Okay. Well, we'll go back here. So now we join those all up. And we got that big gaping whatever that we can fill in. Like I said, if you wanted to light this up, then you could cut that area away so that maybe you've got a little tray that you can put in there to hold LEDs and batteries and stuff like that. And, you know, power switch. And then you simply cut that hole deep enough that you make that tray. You place that tray in, turn it on, and boom, you got a light up platinum like you've got here. So like I said, there is a thing out there for platinum already, but the center is cut out and that's it. I don't know why, but it's certainly not like the image. So I'm just looking at something. Now, you know what? That is actually way too big. Now that I'm looking at it. Of course, I also might have the ring dimensions wrong, which is very possible. I'm being pedantic. I know, I know. Screw it, John. Stop second-guessing yourself. I do this all the time. Magic Thighs, you can associate with that, I'm sure. Second-guessing yourself on your dimensions all the time. But, I mean, so you can see where we're going with this. We've got the cylinder, and then the rim. That's a group, which is then grouped with these notches, which is then grouped with each of these rings, which is then grouped with this. So I could ungroup and ungroup and ungroup and ungroup and ungroup. That's the way that Tinkercad works. So those... I'm really not sure what those little black things are over there, but whatever. So now we can start working on this center part, and we can start building it up, or, you know, doing however you want to do it. It looks like it's got two gigantic-ass bulbs in the middle. That might be what it is. It's like a silver-lined interior with something glowing in the middle, reflecting back into the chamber. But we'll do something here. So I'm going to change the workspace to work actually inside of that hole. And it's platinum time. How's it going, Jeff? We're making some platinum. I figured this is meant to be a Tinkercad tutorial. We'll do something relatively simple, but it's got to be Warframe related, of course. There was a suggestion of, could I make a Pokéball with this? Well, yeah, there you can. It can be done. This isn't the world's greatest Pokéball by any stretch of the imagination, but it works, you know, and you know, you can print it all off. So, I didn't say you're getting any of the platinum. I mean, hell, I've still asked you for a couple more emojis that you haven't delivered on. Called out. But yes, Twilink is my daughter, and she is the one who made all these freaking amazing emojis that I've got. I love them. You don't have to do them. I'll pay someone else to do them. That's fine. I could pay you, or I could pay someone else to do it. It's your call. If you think you're threatening me on that, you're not. So, alright, so let's see what we got on this. Oh, it's really hard to make out what that is. But it looks like it is some kind of little box. So, alright. We'll make some kind of little box in there. Looks like it's got a frame. Oh, look at that. That is definitely what I was thinking of. That is an insert. Because if you look, it's got clips here. One down here, one down here, one up here, one up here. Holding things in. So that is an insert. That is something being held in place. That's interesting. So then... Okay. Okay. I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Interesting. All right. So let's make a little box that fits in here. We'll put a box there, and we can just... Obviously, we don't want it to be that big. We can just bring it right down. Platinum double plus good with benefits? Hey, I'm just trying to make an easy cylinder to show people Tinkercad. That's all I'm trying to do here, man. So, because it is more of a tray-ish kind of thing, Drop that down. And the fact that it sinks down a little bit actually does kind of work, but I'm going to duplicate that. Hold on. Let's try it again. I'm going to duplicate. Duplicate. Raise it up a little bit because I'm going to make that duplicate a hole. And I'll just bring it in a little bit on each end. And then merge those two together, and we should have a little tray. Yeah, well, like I said, someone already made platinum available, but all that there is in the middle is this gaping hole. There's nothing else in the middle of it, so it's like, So, yeah, so that's all you have to do to make a tray. Just take the exact same size, bump it up, and reduce the sizes of the walls by however thick you want the finished walls to be. Join them, and boom, there you go. You got yourself a tray. Then it looks like there are 2 rails, which would probably be the lighting area. And so let's do those. Now these I'm going to do a little bit different. Well, I'm going to raise this up a bit. Oh yes, that's another thing. If you use the keys to move things around, and control will do up and down, regular arrows will be left, right, that sort of thing. If you hold shift, that'll magnify the amount of spaces by 10. So control shift up arrow moves it up 10 by whatever the grid is. So currently that's 0.25. So that moved it up 2.5 millimeters. Down moved it down 2.5 millimeters. Damn it, John. But if I do it without the shift and hold control down, it just increments it by a single step. So holding the shift down will increment it by 10 steps. Let's look at this tray, and it looks like it's got 2 lighting sources that are suspended above the center. Okay, we can do that. Let's change the workspace so that it's up here to make it easier. Take another square. Let's make sure this is absolute top so we can get good dimensions. No clue how wide those are, but they're not very wide. Let's see, 3? And we'll make it 3. It's hard to tell with that glow. Bring that down here. Not quite touching the wall. There we go. Then we can take that, and you can't really tell from the diagram how far apart they are, but there is something there with a little bit of space in between, so just do something like that. And now to make it easier, hey Mark, how's it going? To make it easier to set, let's say you want now to center both of these in the middle of that tray, but not like both of them on the exact center. It's like the group of the 2 on the center. The problem is, if you simply select all 3 and then say center it, oops, those 2 just went on top of each other, which you don't want. So instead, make the 2 of those a group. No one said they had to touch each other. Any multiple objects that are highlighted at the same time will become a group. So now you take that group, take the tray, now you align them. Boom. So now since they're a group, we can also change the height of them the same way. So we can make that 2. And now we can align those with the top of this tray. So now those are aligned with the top. Now what you can do if you want to get even better at this, let's say you want to light this up. You're going to 3D print this tray first, and then paint the whole thing a nice silver reflective material. You can then take these, maybe make them hollow, take a chunk out of here, throw some LED strips up on the inside of this so that they face down, and then do something like, well, let's try this. Let me make a duplicate of that. I'm going to make the duplicate just a little bit longer. I think this is 50 in each direction. Oh, 49.75. Well, that's too odd for me, but we'll keep it there. It's actually good if you're going to do this for 3D printing. Give yourself a little bit of space to work with. Do not make it absolutely perfect fit, because guaranteed the dynamics of the way plastic melts and cools and things like that, it will be a ridiculously tight fit. Give yourself a little bit of space, especially if you're also going to do painting or anything like that. Yes, you could sand the crap out of it to make it fit. That's true. But I would much rather give it just a little bit of space, maybe 0.5 millimeter on each side, because that way it'll fit right in, and even if there is a gap, it'll be so stinking small, no one will ever notice. So, but how you do it is up to you. So, what I could do is, since it's 49.75, actually, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to make that adjustment here. I'll make it 49.5. And then I can recenter it with this. So it's all centered up again. Fine. So now if this is a 50 millimeter gap, this is 49.5 millimeter. Even if you need a little bit of sanding to get it in there, it should be a nice snug fit without having to use a rubber mallet to shove it into place. So if I make that 49.5, and this gap should actually be a little bit smaller now that I think about it. So these are probably too long. The actual lights are probably going to be 49. I'm going to center everything up, and you'll see what I'm doing in a second. So if we bring these back down, they should still be still a little bit too long. Okay, that looks good now. Now take these. Those should be 49.5. To make those the exact length of that box. Again, we'll center those up, make sure everything is good. What you can do is make this, just make it like 0.5 millimeter. Line it up with the top of this. So now, when you put those in, they'll just rest on the top of the lip. Or alternately, if you want it to be flush, you could simply take this, duplicate it, move them in, make them a hole. Merge the two together, and you just took out a notch. So now these will fit right in. Again, that's going to be a really super tight fit. I can guarantee that you will have to shave some stuff off for that to fit perfectly. But nonetheless, you now can have a way to have an LED strip, glue it in there, and suspend it above the tray. And it will just fit right in. And there are different ways you could do it as well, obviously. You could have done this by having some kind of a post underneath to hold it above if you want. Whatever way would have worked. Hey, Watches Arcade, how's it going? Oh, and by the way, Garden City Mark is... it's actually his podcast. I'm the co-host of TGP Nominal, which is... that's our podcast that we try to do regularly. And it's about things all science fact and science fiction. Big focus on astronomy, not astrology. Astronomy. So we'll talk about NASA, we'll talk about SpaceX, we'll talk about Hubble, things that have been going on. So that's the other podcast that I'm a part of. Yep. Just made the February Sky Guide. Yeah, he's based in the UK, which obviously if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it really shouldn't matter. But everything in that case, for some of the episodes that I'm not a part of, are going to be UK focused, which is fine. Yeah, the February Sky Guide, I don't know, those of you here in the States who are of the older variety might remember a show that was popular a while ago called Stargazer, formerly Star Hustler.
And that was hosted by a guy named Jack Horkheimer.
I think that was his name.
Based out of the University of Miami, and it was all about the things that you can see up in the sky with the naked eye. And yes, this is how he talked. And he always ended up the shows with, and keep looking up.
So it was an astronomy show that was done. It was shown on PBS mostly. That was all about the things that you could see for the next week or two with the naked eye. And that's kind of what the Sky Guides are that Mark does with other folks in the UK. But, worth a listen, absolutely. Got the Archiplasmor done. Well, kind of. It's still in prototype mode because when I was working on it and assembling it, that's when I was realizing that some parts didn't fit properly. Keep in mind, it wasn't until maybe 2/3 of the way into printing all the stuff off for this that I realized that my printers were not calibrated. So I'm certain that the ammo drum is a couple of millimeters longer than it should be, which caused issues. And other parts were longer than they should have been, which caused issues. So, but the first prototype is done. That's probably the best way to describe it. I've already realized what changes I need to make for the second prototype. And those are underway. As much as I said I was going to take a little bit of a break, they're currently underway. In fact, you can see printer number 3 over there on the right is busy printing some stuff off. So, printer number 2 is idle. Printer number 1 has finished what it was printing, and printer number 4 isn't even in this room, so you can't see it. But yeah, otherwise, she's probably going to fall apart again on me, but... yeah. All almost 10 pounds of her. Dear God. So work on her is not finished. I just need to make some changes and then print it all off again. Okay. No. Thank you. She's I'm very pleased. I'm pleased with the way she turned out. And those little etchings and so forth turned out a lot nicer than I thought they would. Or when you look at those etchings, you think, oh my God, how am I going to do that? But actually with Photoshop and another thing with Tinkercad, it has the ability to import files as well. So you can't just take a JPEG or PNG, unfortunately. You have to convert it into a vector format. There are websites out there to do it. But once you convert it into a vector format, you can import it, and it can also be converted into a whole. So that's really all that I did for any of these etchings. I took the etching, like take this one. Everything that would be cut away was actually, I did that in Photoshop, converted it into a single color, and then converted that to a vector graphic format that Tinkercad can import. Then I made this piece, and then simply took the pattern from I'm not trying to throw you the middle finger, and made that into a whole. Just joined them up, and that's it. Then all of a sudden I have this piece with all of the things cut out. No, Photoshop works fine. I mean, honestly, all that I did, I used one of the many capture images that I've taken. And I loaded that into Photoshop. I added a new layer to it, and then I simply took the pencil or the brush command and traced over the engraving part of it. That's it. And then I simply saved that top layer off to a JPEG, which I then had converted into vector. So all I did was trace a capture image, really. That's it. So Photoshop is fine for that. Now, if I used Illustrator, that could have exported it into a vector graphic. Yes. But I don't have Illustrator. And I am not going to pay for a subscription. I have an old version of Photoshop that you don't have to subscribe to. Screw you, Adobe. And honestly, if that stopped working, I'd start learning on GIMP, which is open source. It's updated regularly. It behaves very much like Photoshop. I probably should use that anyway. But I've heard of Inkscape, but I mean, GIMP is really mature. I would have no problems using GIMP. Not saying I wouldn't use Inkscape. I've just never had a reason to try it out. So, going back to this, looks like this whole thing is some kind of silver or aluminum or whatever. The colors don't mean a damn thing because when you print it off, you can use whatever color filament you want. So we've got these two. You can join them together. And now we've got a suspended light source. So you could put LED strips up in here, glue them up however you want to do it. Have them reflect down. Use this tray, paint it a very nice, shiny, reflective surface, and turn it on. And you will have the center that will glow a lot like that. Now, granted, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to do more than this. It's going to have to be deeper. You're going to have to find a place to hide batteries, things of that nature. But the point is, I'm just showing you that it can be done. Lurk first supper and maybe some board games. Looking forward to coming back and learning from the VOD. That is okay. That is very cool. Thank you for stopping by. It is much appreciated. I am totally in for that Maple thing on the 26th. We'll see what happens because I'm not working that day. So that would be a good day to do it. So we'll see what's what. I'll let you know. So then with these, we can highlight all of this. Move them both down. Put them in place. Yeah, I mean, you could do any. You could rig it up for. Okay, let's try this. So there's the tray that will act as the reflective surface. But let's say underneath here is where you'll store the battery. You'll store the electronics. So again, we're doing this just to show what Tinkercad can do. I'm going to hide these completely right now for now. So we'll make this area down here the work plane. We'll add another hole. I have no idea. We'll just cut another hole like that, and we'll sink it in. Okay, just for example, join those two together. You now have this big gaping area underneath. You can store batteries, the wiring, and so forth. If you wanted to animate it, you could store a little circuit board in there that you can program. Just put it right in there, run the wires up, and then what you can do with the tray, let me hide that, change the workspace to that, and you can put, say, a small hole to push the wiring up through it. Actually, let's bring that back to make sure it's aligned. Okay, so let's move this over a little bit so it's hidden. There we go. Join that and the tray together. We've now got a hole where you can run the wiring up through to the LED. And you know what? You can even get more clever than this if you really wanted to. If you look at that image, let's say that center section will produce a nice glow. Maybe it won't be enough. You never know. You could still paint it with a silvery surface. So you could print this tray on clear filament. And then you could paint it with like a very thin silver reflective surface. Enough that light from above will bounce back, but thin enough that light from below can come through. See where I'm going with this? And then you could easily, let me hide this. You could easily run some additional little trays right over here, across here, and across here, and across here, that hang above the battery pack. And can then, when you turn everything on, it turns on all the light strips. So you've got light strips right up here reflecting downward into the tray. And you've got lights from below shining upward, coming through that thin reflective surface. And you probably could have something that would glow like that. I'll bet it would work. You know, or make this tray and then cover the inside layer with a thin piece of mylar, reflective mylar. Because mylar should allow light from the back to come through as well. So you don't even have to paint it, just, you know, apply a nice thin sheet of reflective mylar or something similar to that. And you could glow this platinum up pretty damn nicely. Now, as for these things on the side, it's hard to tell what the hell those even are. But they could simply be decorative. So I'm going to add this back to the surface here. And I'm just going to add a small decorative wedge because why the hell not at this point? It doesn't even have to be very big. It does look like a wedge though, at least in that shot it does. And we're going with it. So we can center it with the tray, since at least we'll have that as a reference. Take that. Now this you could flip around because it's just a simple wedge. Move it over here. I would say those are probably not going to be part of the platinum. You would want to print those separately and then glue them on, just based on what I'm seeing here. Again, if there was a way that I could get a better image, I would. Unfortunately, I really can't. But then, you know, so we'll take this and... right about there. And you now have the foundations for a piece of platinum that you can print off and even light up if you want. Yeah, we can go into other ridiculous details like the purpose of these little tabs here. It looks like they're holding something in, but without being able to get a clearer image to see what they're all about, it's hard to tell. And again, you can't see it in Captura, so this is about the best that you can do. But I mean, we've got ourselves stuff that we would have to print off a piece of platinum. You know, and even if you don't light it up, so what? The tray will cover the hole. That's not an issue. So you could print off a piece of platinum using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. Again, you'd want to make changes to this because this is going to be super tight. So you'll probably want to change those holes a little bit there, expand them out a bit. Still allows that part to just rest inside. But, I mean, you've got the notches. You've got the rings. Not much else you could want. And you got yourself a piece of plat that you can just hang out with, you know. Use it as a nightlight in your room. Something. So there you go. I don't know what else we can really do with this. So if you do have a 3D printer, the next step is, all right, how do I handle this? All you have to do is select the part, export it as an STL file, and that's it. Repeat, rinse and repeat for everything else. So export that as whatever, tray.stl. This you don't even need to. That's actually one part. You just print it twice. So when I said 5 parts, it's actually not true. It's 4. Same thing with these rails. Although they're currently one object, you don't need to do that. You can just print off one of them twice. But that is one nice thing. If you have a situation like this where they're actually 2 parts that you're gonna need, as long as they're in a group and you export it as the STL, it will export both of them. You're right. God damn it. I get too excited. But I mean, these little, whatever these are, they're 1 part mirrored. So print those off twice. You print the tray. Okay. You can print these off as a single unit or a double unit. Doesn't matter. So really, you could make this platinum with 4 parts. And that's it. The platinum, the tray, the decorations, and then whatever's there to hold the lights up. I mean, those you can at least see in this diagram. You can see those 2 little bars there. And there you go. There's a piece of plat for you. If you want to wire it up, you got ways to do it underneath there. And you've already got a hole in the tray to run the wires through. And we did that in, what? An hour-ish? Because we spent some time on that Pokéball. And the thing is, this can scale. So if you want it to be bigger, you can scale the whole thing here if you want. I mean, really, you just do this. Hold the shift key down and scale. Or you can simply do that in the slicer for your 3D printer. Either way. Same thing if you want to scale downward. You can hold the shift key down and scale it down. Got to be careful, obviously, because the smaller it gets, there are potential issues with 3D printing when it gets too small. But there you go. So you figure we chatted for about an hour and a half. So we made a rudimentary Pokeball, and pretty much an almost complete piece of Warframe Platinum in less than 2 hours using Tinkercad. So, I mean, it really is. You can do so much in this. It does have its limitations for sure. Some things that I wish they would put in. I've started working on the, wasn't the Prismagricata. I can't remember. It was one of the Grenier pistols. I started to work on it, but the curves and everything with it chewed my ass up. At least if I revisited it now, I might be able to figure out how to do it. But I had to give up on it. I still got the file. I can still work on it. The other one was the Corinth. I really, really, really wanted to do a Corinth. That is such a cool looking rifle. But again, it got to the point where there were parts that they had to do curves and stuff like that Tinkercad isn't really meant for. And I finally surrendered. Again, I still got the files. I could go back and work on it. Maybe come back with a fresh approach on how to handle those areas that I was having difficulty with. Or maybe just say, F it. Do the core in Tinkercad, export it out to Fusion 360 and work on it from there. That's possible too. Now, okay, yeah, the Discord did work. By all means, join my Discord, ask questions. I used to do training a long time ago. I've trained people from Hershey Food, Duquesne University, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, a bunch of major organizations. And the one thing that I always said at the beginning of the training, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. Because if you think it's a stupid question, then it could be something that maybe I didn't explain properly or I didn't explain clearly. So if you've got a question, chances are someone else does too. But they're afraid to ask because they think it's a stupid question and nobody learns. So, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. I do firmly believe that. If you're going to be a smart ass, that's a different situation. But if it's really something you don't know and you need clarification, ask. Do not think that, they'll think I'm stupid if I ask that. No, I won't think you're stupid if you ask that. I'll be more annoyed if you don't ask it. I didn't just suddenly come out of the womb thinking, props in CAD. I'm 52 years old. I started making props when I was 48. Who makes props when they're 48? Well, I did. And, this is what I can do in only 4 years from just experimenting in Tinkercad and trying new different things and thinking outside the box for a lot of issues. I got this baby here. I got this damn hammer right here. If I can do it, you can do it. That's what it comes down to. Do not ever be afraid to ask. Worst thing you did is put your foot in your mouth. You can always take it out and continue the conversation. Yeah, and even at that, putting your foot in your mouth isn't going to be that big of a deal, honestly. I don't think it. If it's something you've never done before, or something something's just not clicking. I've been there where something simply was not clicking. I could not understand the connection between this and this and this. And it was driving me crazy. And then somebody explained it. And then after they explained it, it was like, oh my God, that was so simple. How did I not see it? It happens. It happens, But this is why I wanted to do this stream, so that everybody looks at the props and thinks, oh my God, those are so cool. How did you, oh my God, you've been doing this for so long. I wish I could do that. That phrase annoys me. It's like, I wish I could do that. You can. I just showed you the foundations to do it. Every single prop that I have ever made has been done using these techniques. You add stuff, you take away. And you could even add stuff to take away, which is used to take away from other things. It's all group after group after group after group after group, and how you link all of that stuff together and how you group all of that stuff together is what matters. I can just about guarantee, if I had a way of like getting a hierarchy tree of all of the groups that were needed to make this, probably go into maybe 30 groups deep for some parts, where it's a group of 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 a group. And it's just adding and taking away. Now, thankfully, Tinkercad can do all that, and you just work on the parts separately. When anybody who was watching the stream when I first started working on this, I worked on the shoulder stock section. No, sorry, I worked on the ammo drum first because that was the cylinder, which was the center point for pretty much everything else. So I worked on the ammo drum first. When I got a little bit stuck after that, I worked on the shoulder stock because the shoulder stock is just out there on its own. It connects at the hinge with the ammo drum, but it's all about steps. So I worked on this first because obviously when you're looking at it from the top or you're looking at it from the front, the ammo drum is the center mark. So as long as everything is centered with the ammo drum, good. Obviously from this perspective, it's off kilter in that regard, so I couldn't work it this way. But as long as I could center everything this way and this way, I guess that's the way to do it, from the front and from the top, the ammo drum was the centerpiece. Fine, got that taken care of. What can I work on next? Let me get the shoulder stock out of the way first because that's just out there by itself. So I worked on, these parts and then this. Got those done. Okay, what's next? Well, let me work on the trigger because the trigger isn't going to be that difficult. And it's not. The trigger's not all that bad. Okay, so now this is done. All right. Well, now I need to work on the main body because everything attaches to the main body. So then you work on the main body. And it's just steps. You just build up from it. It's not like I took a look at this and said, I'm going to do everything at once. No, you figure out what parts you can do first, do them, and then figure out ways to make it integrate into the rest of the machine. So, if you look at, in fact, let me take a look. The files that I have for how many parts make this up. Hold on, let me get there. I have 131 files in this directory. So, now granted, some of them are like version 2. Some of them are split up in a way that they might not print on these printers because of their size, but maybe they'll print on the big one in the back. So I might have a single piece broken up into 2 files to print on these printers, but it's another file to print off the full thing on the back printer. So it's not exactly a 131 items. Some of them are duplicated. They're simply mirrored. Like the rails that I have here that surround the ammo drum. They're simply one file for each of the rails that I have to print 3 times. You just work on it piece by piece, and then you just fit that puzzle together. Bong? Sir, there are no bongs here because marijuana is not yet legal in Pennsylvania for recreational use, and I am an employee of the federal government, which still does not recognize marijuana. So no, there are no bongs in this house. Bad. I know, I did. Hitting the mic is another thing that I do. Well, technically I didn't hit the mic. The gun did, so blame the gun. And Meg is responsible for me making this gun. Therefore, you can blame Meg. Meg is responsible for the microphone getting hit. That's the way I'm looking at it. Blame it all on Meg. Absolutely. It's all her fault. Blame it on the Meg. Yeah. Yeah, I did that. There's a reference for you. Where is your mind? Bong is a sound. Well, you know. Fine, you caught me. But I don't smoke. I actually don't. I don't smoke. I don't do any of that stuff. But, you know. That's when you hear bong, that's just where my mind goes. What can I say? Animated the same. Okay, wait. Animated the same as the regular Archiplasmor. This one is a Primarch. What are you talking about? I'm confused. I'm going back to what you posted before. Animated the same as a regular Archiplasmor. This more as a Primarch. This is the Tenet Archiplasmor. What are you talking about? And really, there's no difference between the Tenet and the regular one, except for the details. Those etchings and the paint scheme. You know, that is one thing where I can blame Meg for a lot, but I chose the Tenet variant. Did I have to? No. But the Tenet looks a lot cooler, and it was a challenge I wanted to throw on myself. But I did it. Lots of frustration, lots of headaches. I'm really glad that I won those 10 free spools of filament. Those helped a lot because, yeah, they're gone. They're completely gone. So I am glad that I won those. I will admit that. But anyway, I have hydrated plenty in this stream. I have to go dehydrate. I shall return.